Hello and welcome to Kensington Security Consulting, where we bring education to national security. This is Mark Silinsky. In this podcast, we will look at the founder of Hamas, Sheik Yassin, and examine the current controversy over capital punishment in Israel. Both are explored in my upcoming book, Cauldron of Terror: Hamas, Israel, and the World. So who is Ahmed Yassin, and why was he important? He created and led Hamas, and that is why he is important. He had a difficult but accomplished life, though his accomplishments were reviled by Israelis, which is why the IDF killed him. In some ways, he was an unconventional leader who overcame many challenges. First, he was a quadriplegic. He claimed that he was performing handstands on a beach in Gaza as a small boy when he snapped his neck. This bound him to a wheelchair for the rest of his life. It also forced him to advance himself through his intellect, which he did. Always studious, he studied English at Cairo University and later became a popular teacher in Gaza. He found a home in the Islamic Brotherhood, which we have discussed at length on podcasts and in Cauldron of Terror. The brothers led a broad-based effort to return Muslims to the principles of Islam's first generation of leaders. In the 1960s, he led the Gaza branch of the Brotherhood. At the time, Gaza was part of Egypt, which clamped down on the brothers' recruitment and social agitation. Egypt imprisoned him for a few months in 1965, hoping he would cool down. He continued to agitate. A few years later, Yassin's Brotherhood began to build its influence by organizing and funding schools and medical clinics, a hallmark of the brothers. He used this to call Muslims to Islam. Then he called his associates to violence. As future Hamas leader Khaled Mashal recounts, in 1983 we carried out our first military experience under the leadership of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin. The 1983 organization sought to gather weapons to prepare groups for military training and launch the Jihad project. Yassin himself has been directly tied to Hamas terrorism. Arrested in 1984, Yassin told Israeli authorities that he founded an organization intent on fighting non-religious Palestinian factions in the territories and carrying out jihad operations against Israel. Released in a 1985 prisoner exchange, Yassin hatched a 1989 plot to kidnap and murder Israeli soldiers and negotiate the exchange of their bodies for the release of Hamas prisoners. Yassin was arrested again after the abduction and murder of Israeli soldiers and was sentenced to 2 life terms for his role in these killings. Yassin was again released from prison in 1997 as part of a deal with Jordan's King Hussein, following Israel's botched attempt to assassinate Khaled Mashal in Jordan. Palestinian security forces placed Yassin under house arrest several times between 1998 and 2000 in an effort to curb Hamas's terrorist efforts to undermine the peace process. Since then, Yassin has played an increasingly active role in coordinating and financing Hamas attacks. In a well-known March 2000 case, Palestinian security officials arrested several members of Yassin's entourage, including 2 bodyguards, and uncovered explosives intended for an attack against Israel, hidden in a kindergarten in Gaza's Shati refugee camp. Yassin was again released from prison in 1997 as part of a deal with Jordan's King Hussein, following Israel's botched assassination attempt on Khaled Mashal in Jordan. Palestinian security forces placed Yassin under house arrest several times between 1998 and 2000 to curb Hamas's terrorist efforts to undermine the peace process. Since then, Yassin has played an increasingly active role in coordinating and financing Hamas attacks. Yassin is also directly linked to the one documented case of operational crossover between Hamas and Al-Qaeda, a Hamas activist receiving religious instruction in Pakistan, was recruited in February 1998 for military training in Al-Qaeda's camps in Afghanistan. So what was he like? He is a martyr and an inspirational figure for many Palestinians and other Muslims. An Israeli security officer interrogated him for over 12 years. They met at his home in the Sabra neighborhood of Gaza City after his arrest in May 1989 and his trial before a military court. The Israeli was struck by his saintly status, and his followers obeyed his instructions immediately and unquestioningly. For both his admirers and his enemies, Yassin cut a respectable figure. This is the bottom line. Yassin brought Hamas from obscurity to prominence after splitting from Arafat in 1994, when the Nobel Prize-winning PLO leader accepted a two-state solution. Yassin demanded that all Israeli land be surrendered to Palestinians and ordered a wave of suicide bombings. In response, Israel decided to eliminate him. In March 2004, a drone spotted him being wheeled to prayer and targeted him with an invisible laser. Helicopters launched 3 Hellfire missiles, one of which hit him directly, killing him and 9 others. Many Palestinians idolized him, while Israeli authorities wondered whether they had created a martyr who would inspire future generations of Palestinians. All this is discussed in Cauldron of Terror, which will be available this summer. Capital punishment. Okay, let's look now at capital punishment in Israel. For those who have followed this controversy, you may have assumed, as I did, that there was no capital punishment in Israel except for Adolf Eichmann. In practice, this was the case, but not in law. Execution was on the books for murder until 1954, when it was abolished for ordinary murders. It remained an option, however, for mass murder in time of war or against humanity. Judges rarely imposed death sentences, and when they did, those sentences were commuted to life imprisonment. Then Hamas and other organizations would kidnap Israelis and hold them for prisoner exchanges, as they did for Yassin. After October 2023, many Israelis began to view these exchanges more favorably, and some demanded the reinstatement of the death penalty. A successful push began to pass a law reestablishing the death penalty for those convicted by Israeli military and criminal courts. The bill states its purpose to establish the death penalty for terrorists who carried out murderous terror attacks as part of the fight against terrorism. It further states that a person who intentionally causes the death of another with the aim of harming a citizen or resident of Israel, with the intent of rejecting the existence of the State of Israel, his sentence shall be death or life imprisonment, and only one of these penalties. Predictably, the bill drew both praise and scorn. The main objection to the bill is that it is racist. Opponents argued that it was unethical, unconstitutional, and discriminatory, favoring Jewish Israelis over Palestinians. This is a no-nonsense law that mandates the death penalty in most cases. Only if the court determines that there are special reasons can it commute the death penalty to life in prison. Beyond the charge of racism, many Israelis oppose the death penalty. They believe Israel is too moral for it, as many Europeans and Americans do. Israelis also remember that the first execution took the life of an innocent man. In 1948, Meir Tobiansky, an army officer, was falsely accused of espionage and executed for treason. He was posthumously exonerated. The second execution occurred in 1962. When Israel executed Adolf Eichmann, few mourned his death. Israel's security minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, the main driver behind the bill, had some fun with it. He declared that he dreamed of hanging terrorists and that he was dying to see the bill passed. Get it? Well, an Arab Knesset member, Ahmad Tibi, shouted that Ben-Gvir needs a psychiatrist immediately, adding, "Usually people wish for a better future and love with a birthday cake, but these people sanctify hatred and death." Israelis formed a group against the death penalty called Lahayim, Israelis Against the Death Penalty. Lahayim means to life. Proponents respond that they are through with the peacenik kibbutznik efforts. After October 2013, many Israelis looked to stronger anti-terrorist measures, and capital punishment was among them. So when can we expect the first executions? The death penalty law won't be applied retroactively or to alleged perpetrators of the October 7th terror attacks. Opponents will throw everything they have at derailing the executions. Under the plan, the Israel Prison Service will carry out the death sentence within 90 days of sentencing. The Prime Minister may delay it for up to 180 days. The condemned will hang. Here are some of my thoughts. People who oppose the death penalty period oppose this bill, and some civil rights organizations underscore the racist elements against Palestinians. The first point makes sense to me. Most Western states oppose it for many reasons. Fair enough. But is it really racist? Is it written anywhere in the bill that Jews are exempt? Certainly. Most of the terrorists are Muslim. But there are also hard left terrorists who have been convicted. If the hangman pulls the door on a disproportionate number of Palestinians, it is because a disproportionate number of terrorist murderers are Palestinian. It makes sense to me that Palestinians would do most of the air dancing because most of the Palestinians do the killing. But I would like your opinion. Okay, our last issue is unconventional. We at Kensington Consulting are indebted to the Palestinian Authority for expanding our awareness of Israeli tactics in Gaza. In Cauldron of Terror, we examined Israeli battle tactics used to destroy Hamas. We thought we were thorough and that our analysis was rigorous, but we overlooked a four-legged mobile weapon designed to attack children and the infirm. We thank our stars that the PA brought it to the world's attention. These are Israeli super rats. They are giant rats engineered through advanced genetic mutation in Zionist research labs. Mighty Mouse doesn't have anything on these guys. Palestine Broadcasting Corporation director in the Gaza Strip, Rafat Al-Qudra.
These rodents are genetically engineered. Clearly, they were deliberately introduced into the Gaza Strip so that they would attack the tents of the uprooted people and attack the weak. These rodents, if I tell you they are the size of a cat, these rodents are large and attack the weak, meaning they attack children and the elderly, particularly diabetics. A woman who did not feel that a large rat. It ate the toes of her foot, and she did not feel it, but only felt some wetness, and was shocked to discover she had lost part of her leg. I'm almost sure that this is part of the occupation's, i.e., Israel's, war against the Gaza Strip.
This comes from Fatah Run Radio Martini, Facebook page, April 28th, 2026. Thank you very much, Radio Martini. Rest assured we will share this with our diabetic listeners planning to go camping in Gaza. This concludes this podcast. Nothing in this or any videocast or podcast represents the official position of the United States government. We value your comments, especially those about the rats. Until our next episode, goodbye from Kensington Security Consulting.